Should I
Oh,
start?
sorry about that.
Okay, is everything okay? Should I
There you
continue?
go. Yeah, all right.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, no problem. Thanks. So I'm not going to get deeply into this paper in this talk, but or others. But I just wanted to very briefly sketch out a broad categorization as what I see as a kind of taxonomy of the known approaches, at least the approaches I'm aware of in this space, starting with. Let's be realistic. Proof of personhood is not new, didn't really originate in the tech world. Governments have been trying to do some approximation of this for, centuries. And they typically do this with documents, birth records, basic, bureaucratic structures that make you, prove you're, this person and you have this particular record because you have a birth certificate that says so and a passport and blah, blah, blah. And these things can be compared and they can be, made, not perfectly unforgeable, but at least, moderately hard to forge. And governments rely on these all the time to try to make it hard to, say, sign up for multiple quotas of a social services, or, sign up fake children for tax benefits or breaks, or things like that. All kinds of social benefits, safety net benefits that are supposed to be one per person, right? And furthermore, some recent research, such as a very interesting paper by Ari Jewell's group at Cornell called Candid, has tried to build on this approach and say, well, can we create more privacy preserving proof of personhood, ID systems supporting proof of personhood based on government assigned IDs. So that's an interesting possibility. So a second approach that's probably only the second one that governments have actually implemented in a large scale are biometric identity systems, right? So actually using fingerprints, iris scans, et cetera, real physical attributes, right? And so, this has been, actually done by governments and also discussed and proposed in a lot of ways in the academic literature. Of course, it has its major challenges, privacy and security risks, et cetera. Then, of course, there's the physical presence test. So this is, of course, the idea that my proposal of pseudonym parties built on. But, of course, I was not the first to there. I discovered that, India and other countries have been doing kind of a different variation of that in the way they handle voting and voter registration. If you don't have reliable voter records, one thing that some countries have done is just basically say, okay, everyone come vote. And you'll get an indelible ink mark on your finger that hopefully won't wash off for 24 or 48 hours, right? And so not having that ink mark yet is your proof of your right to vote, right? And so there's various ways to do the physical presence, one body, one vote, kind of thing, with different trade-offs. But that's another broad approach. Yet another is trying to use the presence test in different fashions, but make that fully online. And this is where there's been really interesting, innovative ideas and experiments such as IDENA, right? And I see that some of the IDENA people are here. That's great. And of course, there are other experimental approaches that rely on social networks or trust networks inspired by the original PGP style web of trust model, right? And so, so all of these are interesting. They have different, strengths, weaknesses, challenges and stuff, but now, I want to move on and ask, well, how should we think about these? How should we evaluate them and compare them? And I want to propose around this basically four goals that I feel are key in this space to what we really need to get what I think a lot of us want, right? Even if, of course, we're going to be able to argue forever about, different priorities and how much and things like this. But I propose that, all of us probably want to some degrees, to a significant degree, these four things. So first of all, inclusion. We'd like all real human people to be able to participate. Hopefully, real live people, not dead people in general, right? Equality. We'd like each person to get equal power, equal rewards, equal whatever in this process. Otherwise, if we don't care about equality, then the problem is kind of easy. You use proof of work, proof of stake. You still get inclusion. You just don't get equality in these many common existing approaches, right? You, of course, want security. You want whatever approach to be able to withstand powerful attacks, especially attacks that try to, create many fake identities. But there are other attacks like, just identity, the equivalent of identity theft, personhood theft, let's say. And of course, we'd like privacy. We don't want people to have to disclose or prove too much more than they're comfortable, or things that might violate their privacy, right? So let's look briefly, just one level deeper at each of these challenges. So inclusion. How can we enable every real live person to participate? Well, of course, this is the ideal. In reality, there have to be barriers, right? You have to do or prove something in order to address the Sybil attack. So in any
my screen is not seeing this. Okay, it's a really? Zoom problem. Sorry, or something's weird happening here. Sorry.
Yeah, the screen is it's done. It's refreshed.
Okay, yeah, I notice even for me, sometimes there's a noticeable delay. So yeah, I'm sorry if it's if we're getting a pretty bad Zoom lag here. I'm not sure what to do about that. It's okay now.
At least we started. It's okay now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, in reality, there always have to be some kind of barriers. People have to have something like, it might be documents, might be devices, might be some amount of money, time, to participate in events, mobility to get to events if they're in person, friends on a social network, or something like that. And you might have to prove something, right? You prove citizenship, prove that a biometric sample corresponds to you, prove presence at an event, prove some kind of social trust or reputation metric. All of these can be excluding, can make it hard for some class of people to participate. How bad are these problems, and how to handle them? Do we need exception cases, and how to handle the exception cases, right? So I'll leave it there for now. So the second main goal, equality. Well, we want each person to get exactly the same rights from exactly one personhood token, one quota, one vote, etc. Right? So, but in any proof of personhood solution, we need to ask, well, how could a clever, determined, or rich abuser still get several or many active personhood tokens, right? And there's many ways that they might do this. One of them is like by just accumulation, right? If you just have to surmount some bridge, but you can surmount that bridge multiple times, you get one NIM trusted, you go back and repeat, right? There's many quasi proof of personhood approaches that use some kind of proxies like phone numbers, credit cards. I believe. Cloudflare proposed a proof of personhood, an approach they call proof of personhood, but it uses YubiKeys as proxy. So one YubiKey, one vote. But of course, if you're rich, you can buy multiple YubiKeys, right? And then a particularly hard problem of coercion, right? Can someone who's rich basically buy the participation of other people and basically take over their rewards and voting rights? Is that, and how much of a problem is that, if it's possible, right? And so finally, beyond equality, of course, we need to consider security, right? How can a determined or rich abuser steal tokens or even synthesize a large number of fakes, right? And there's, again, many potential attack vectors. A couple general ones I'm particularly worried about are single points of compromise, right? So biometrics this is particularly a problem for biometrics, where you're ultimately ultimately one compromised registration device or authority could potentially synthesize and register many fakes, right? And then attacks using, say, powerful deep fakery, using AI advances. This is a general approach that can synthesize all sorts of evidence in principle, talking heads, people showing ID cards, people chatting on video, even whole crowds participating at a fake event, right? So, I'm not going to pretend to, have the answers to these, but just observe that I feel that long-term security against especially these powerful attacks will need to rely on very strong transparency mechanisms, plus overwhelmingly redundant evidence, avoiding relying on any single person device, or even just a few, right? And finally, privacy, right? In any solution to proof of personhood, what does a person need to show or prove in order to get full participation, and how sensitive is that, right? Do they need to show documents? Do they need to disclose social media profiles, who their friends and followers and so on are? Is that okay, or is that a problem? And finally, even after you've gotten a proof of personhood token, how can using those tokens violate your privacy, right? Okay, if you use them to log into many websites, can those websites track you from site to site? Well, it would be nice if they couldn't, right? So those are some of the privacy issues we need to be thinking about. Okay, so that's my brief discussion of goals. Now let's take a quick look of, uses, what I envision we would love to be able to do with POP tokens, or proof of personhood tokens. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'll try to go very quickly through these, and hopefully I'm preaching to the choir here. Hopefully most of you have already thought of many of these things, but just to start with, can we at least get rid of CAPTCHAs, right? They're getting harder and harder because AI, humans are eventually going to lose that war, and often do already. Proof of personhood could be both more abuse limiting and more inclusive if we can make it work. We could get, ideally pseudonymous single sign-on, instead of sign in with Facebook buttons or sign in with Twitter or Google buttons. How about a sign in as pseudonym button that automatically registers you with a one per person account on any participating website? Next time you visit that website, you automatically get logged into the same account. You don't need to disclose any identity information. And it's good for the website too, because if you abuse, they can block your account and you only got that one, right? So all manner of websites like Wikipedia, crowdsourcing websites could become editable by default again without so much risk of sock puppet abuse. News sites could have comment sections again, all of the, those things that they turned off because they got too toxic. Well, with this way, maybe they could become more governable again. Of course, many of you, as am I, are interested in the idea of cryptocurrency-based universal basic income, cryptocurrencies that basically allow all participants to print money at an equal rate. So that would be awesome, and that's a very interesting application. But of course, most importantly, I feel, is making it possible for the online ecosystem to self-govern in a democratic one person, one vote fashion, right? There's many ways that can be done. I also happen to be interested in alternative scalable structures like liquid democracy, or sortition-based structures, like being able to randomly sample juries or mini publics, as they call them. But you want to sample a list of real people to do that, right? That's very important, right? And so personhood could enable all of these exciting things. So finally, challenges. Now, I know I'm really out of time, but don't worry, I'm not going to get into all of these. There are tons of important challenges. Here are just a few. But I just want to highlight two particular ones as final thoughts. So to think about, right? So one of them is we need to allow people to, and even expect people to have alter egos, right? So can we ask Clark Kent to prove that he's not also Superman? What evidence could he present, to convince us that he's not Superman, right? And should we even ask him that? So it's actually fairly common for people to have alter egos of different kinds, right? There's many good reasons how separating work, home, hobby, secret hobbies, or things like that not everyone would understand. So there's all kinds of reasons to have alter egos, right? And we should be designing proof of personhood approaches to allow that, right? Now, and finally, one of the remaining biggest challenge that I don't see enough attention on yet is the coercion problem, right? Of course, participation can be bought. Somebody can pay a bunch of people to participate in a personhood event of some kind, however that works. Can we make sure that, if those people go and start voting and, participating in self-governance structures, how do we know that they're just not serving the rich coercer instead of expressing their true intent, right? And so that's a really important problem. It's actually a problem in the real world, in real world voting systems, and it's going to be just as much, if not probably more, a problem if we ever try to use proof of personhood for online self-governance, right? So I'll leave it at that. In summary, I feel like the whole idea of proof of personhood promises, if we can succeed, to fill in a major missing foundation that could enable technology to serve people in ways that it currently can't, basically by being able to allocate resources or count one per person, right? So this is the key to meaningful online voting, reputation, self-governance, etc. Right? And again, it's very exciting to see an explosion of new approaches and pragmatic experiments in ways to achieve this vision. So, but I do, would like to propose that we need to, ways to measure them especially on dimensions of inclusion, equality, security, and privacy. And of course, there are many open questions and challenges. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm very glad to hear questions and discussion, however you want to handle it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bryan. We'll now move on to Kevin Owocki's presentation, and then we'll have a short moment for questions, and we won't be able to dive deep into that, but hopefully this is something that can be followed up. We all have access to this Notion document, and we can use it to ping each other and continue the conversation over there. But yes, for now, I would like to introduce Kevin Owocki. Kevin is the Chief Roboticist and CEO of Gitcoin, which is a blockchain-based platform using allocating funds to open source Web3 projects. And it's using many different proof of personhood protocols to support quadratic funding, a quadratic funding mechanism. Gitcoin has already allocated $25 million to open source projects. It engages 300,000 developers per month. It has extremely exciting events with workshops. And I think that Kevin is also a leader in this space, just a phenomenal communicator of some of these questions that are behind proof of personhood. He's a meme extraordinaire. I highly recommend everyone following him on Twitter. And he will talk to us about some of the practical opportunities in applying these solutions, and also some of the hurdles that have come up since he began using these solutions. So Kevin, please take the stage.
Hey, Paula, thank you so much for that introduction and for organizing this, and Vinay as well. I feel a little bit out of my depth because I kind of follow some of the theoretical stuff in the game theory and the research here, but I'm very much like a shiny colors, meme lord marketing B2C kind of guy. I like to say that like Vitalik and Glenn came up with quadratic funding, the theory, and I'm just like the person who took a hit. Like I'm like the open source hipster that's putting it to use. But that's okay. When our powers combine, we'll work together. And also hi to everyone else. I see a lot of you on the call that we've been talking in various capacities about growing in funding digital public goods. So Gitcoin's mission is to build and fund digital public goods, empower communities of builders to work together and create the open internet, to get paid for working on open source, and to build these open economies in the blockchain space. It is my big dream that we create a crypto economic Schelling point where people can quit their corporate jobs and they can work on open source software. That's what we do at Gitcoin. We've done about $25 million worth of funding for open source software. It's been accelerating over the last 2 years or so. Our biggest sort of growth engine is Gitcoin grants, which you can think of as it's kind of like a crypto enabled Patreon. I think we're the largest crowdfunding platform in the Ethereum space right now. And we run these Gitcoin grants rounds where we have a matching pool, and then we allocate that matching pool as people go through the crowdfunding campaigns. And you can see it's been growing between 20% and 50% every quarter that we run these rounds. The secret sauce of quadratic funding is basically the way the matching pool is distributed. If you have read the paper by Vitalik and Glenn, A Flexible Design for Funding Public Goods, you maybe know how it works, but we created this little shiny utility for people who don't like to read long papers in order to explain how it works. And I'll just really quickly show you kind of every grants round, we have a matching campaign of $600K that we give out to the Ethereum community that we apply, that we distribute contemporaneously with a crowdfunding campaign. Right now, we're doing about 250,000 contributions of about $1 each is the median contribution to every Gitcoin grants round. And the way the matching pool is distributed is according to the QF formula, which basically says that if 2 grants get the exact same amount of funding, but grant 1 gets it from more people, then it is going to get way more of the matching pool. So we're optimizing for the public goods that the poor and the many need to see supported, not just what the rich people want to see supported. And this is really powerful because it gets over the free rider problem with public goods. A $10 donation gets matched with $75. Holy guacamole, I'm going to get my wallet out and support my favorite projects. But the problem, and the reason why we're here to talk about Sybil resistance, is that if I'm grant number 2 and I just want to make up 10 identities, well, I can get way more of the matching pool. That's our Sybil resistance problem. This is what keeps me up at night, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. trying to figure out how do we get Sybil resistance in the crypto ecosystem. And so if you go to your Gitcoin profile, this is my Gitcoin profile. You can see gitcoin.co/Owocki, and then I'm on my trust bonus tab. What I've got right here is this thing that we've got in here called trust verification. So basically, on Gitcoin, you'll only start off receiving 50% of the match when you do a crowdfunding campaign until you verify on Proof of Humanity. We recently launched a tool called Quadratic Diplomacy, Bright ID, Idena, POAP, ENS. I think a couple of people on this group are on projects that we're integrated with, and thank you for solving the hard problem of Sybil resistance. Gitcoin grants could not exist without Sybil resistance, so thank you for allowing us to integrate with you and to derive from you the Sybil resistance in the ecosystem. Right now, I think that maybe 1% of Gitcoin grants contributors are verified on Proof of Humanity, 0% on Quadratic Diplomacy, 45% on Bright ID, 1% on Idena, about 10 and 15% on POAP and ENS. So we're kind of in this uncanny valley where we can't really go full on, like forcing people to verify because there's UX friction. And we haven't really figured out which one of these Sybil resistance techniques that we really want to double down on. And so when I talk to other founders of DApps about Sybil resistance and how to solve it, they all kind of want to learn what Gitcoin has learned. And I've just kind of said, listen, there's no silver bullet right now. I hope that we'll get there, but there's nothing that's perfect. We're all iterating towards perfection, but we're not quite there yet. And one of my sort of dreams is what if we could provide an API to DApps in the ecosystem where they can integrate this one API, one line of JavaScript, and then get Sybil resistance from all these different providers. And the analogy that I'm sort of making right here is that I don't know how many people in the audience have used Wallet Connect. Let me stop sharing actually real quick so I can just get a quick show of hands. Does anyone use Wallet Connect in this space? Okay, I see maybe half of the hands are up right now. The way Wallet Connect works is that if I'm a developer that is integrating a Web3 wallet into my ecosystem, it can quickly become very unwieldy. I can say, have it all over my code. I can say, if MetaMask, then do X. If Ledger, then do Y. If Trezor, then do Z. And it's just like a whole thing. And so Wallet Connect, what it does is it's one line of JavaScript where you can go in and you can say, user, just select your wallet, and then it abstracts away any sort of like custom APIs or functions. And all of a sudden your DApp supports all these different wallets. And so the equivalent, the parallel with Sybil resistance that I've sort of been thinking about is like, what if there's just one line of JavaScript? Let's call it like a Sybil Connect or something like that you could integrate into your DApp, and it would instantly integrate with Proof of Humanity, with Quadratic Diplomacy, with Bright ID, with Idena, and basically we just sort of abstract away from the DApp having to manage all of these Sybil resistance mechanisms. And what the DApp just gets back is the idea of a personhood score. So basically, one of the big things for me is realizing that in the real world, you're either a person or not, or you're not. And I can verify empirically that the people I met at UCC are probably people, and they're unique people. But digitally, that's much harder to do. And so one of the things I've started to do is conceive this project as not just a 0 or 1, are you a human, but assigning each person a personhood score, which is basically like, what's the cost of forgery of your identity? So basically, if you integrate your Twitter account into Gitcoin, we can give you a $1 price of forgery because it costs $1 to forge a Twitter account. But Proof of Humanity, we know, has much stronger Sybil resistance, and that can provide $150 worth of personhood score. I'm making up these numbers, by the way. But the sort of point is that we can sort of make a floating point number of, this is your personhood score. And if we integrate, if I'm Rabbit Hole, if I'm Gitcoin Grants, and I know your personhood score, I know that I can give you up to your personhood score amount of rewards for integrating with, like in the integration of the DApp. Like for example, Gitcoin Grants, like if you have a personhood score of 150, we can give you 150 worth of matching funds if every round, if we know your personhood score. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do is at Gitcoin, we're sort of mucking around with this idea of launching this thing called a Proof of Personhood passport. And this is not something that's public. It's might not even be something that we actually launch. It's just sort of a concept at this point. But the idea is to have transportable Proof of Personhood identity for the Web3 space. And basically the idea is that we aggregate all of the different identity providers in the space, whether it's POAP, Apollo, Bright ID, Idena, and then basically just provide an API that allows your Sybil score, your personhood score, to follow you around the ecosystem. And it's just that Gitcoin Grants is the first place that it has been used. So all of these Sybil resistance mechanisms, like you can have the perfect academic Sybil resistance mechanism, but if it doesn't have economics on top of it, then no one's going to use it. This is why UBI and Proof of Humanity are so good together. You have Proof of Humanity, and once you're in Proof of Humanity, you get UBI. This is why Gitcoin Grants is symbiotic with everyone in the Proof of Personhood space, is that there's an economic reason to actually care enough to validate your Bright ID or your Idena or your Proof of Humanity. And so the idea is that we create a shelling point where we can all share this Sybil resistance data together, and that it could be a building block for a better internet. The idea is that if anyone's starting a quadratic funding or a voting or a UBI tool or a one person, one vote DAO, then they don't have to go through the hard work of solving Sybil resistance. They can just draft off of the tools that are already out there. And so this is basically something that we've talked about. We've talked about creating at Gitcoin. I can actually show you a demo of it working right here. If I click, this right here says already got POPP. Click to see your POPP score. And so if I just connect it to my Gitcoin account, then it'll show me that my personhood score is 45. So basically there's $45 worth of Sybil resistance on my account right here because I've verified with various other services on Gitcoin. So I think that the key from my point is that we haven't really figured out exactly who we want to be our Sybil resistance tool long term. And by allowing an API and abstraction layer that allows us to aggregate all of the Sybil resistant identities together, that we could maybe solve some problems and grow the network effects of Sybil resistance. I want to just like be very clear about what we are and we are not providing if we do decide to launch this tool. The first thing is I feel very strongly in the what's that oath that like medical providers have to go through? I think it's the Hippocratic oath, the Socratic oath, where basically first do no harm. So I do not want to fucking like dox anyone that's on Gitcoin. And so POPP only tells your personhood score, no other information about you. So not your name, not your address, not your ETH address, only your personhood score is the only thing that it does. We were very narrowly trying to solve for Sybil resistance. And the other thing that I want to be very clear about is that this is really imperfect because it's centralized around Gitcoin. And another thing that keeps me up at night is our stewardship of all of this data associated with people's grants contributions, but also their anti-Sybil identity and stuff like that. And so I'm actually talking to Santi from Proof of Humanity and a few other people about what it would look like if we created a decentralized version of Proof of Personhood passport and launched that, which kind of takes the weight off of my shoulders of being the central intermediary that's going to host this. So I don't know if we're going to find the developer cycles to do that. I would very much like it if someone else did this so that I didn't have to do it. We're very focused on growing open source, and this is just a downstream problem. And so if someone else takes it and runs with it, that's absolutely fine with me. But yeah, that's kind of what we're building at Gitcoin and the latest on Sybil resistance on Gitcoin. And I'll just remind everyone just to zoom back out and to end my presentation with open source software creates $500 billion per year in economic value, and open source software developers are doing it nights and weekends, taking time away from their family, and they have to get a job at like Chase Bank in order to pay their mortgage. And that is fucked up. Like if we can solve this problem, we can create a crypto economic force where people can just go work on open source software. And then like, if it works for open source, like why couldn't we extend it out to other public goods like journalism or clean air? Or down, like creating a livable downtown in your city. Like these are information age institutions that we could create for funding public goods, and we just got to solve that Sybil inclusion resistance in order to do it. And so that we're just kind of trying to create a shelling point for that, and that's why I'm so passionate about this problem space. Paula, I'm not sure what was on your agenda. I don't know if I covered everything that we said I was going to cover, but happy to take questions or discuss from here.
No, I think that was great, Kevin. There are, I'm sure, so many questions, and we'll have a lot of time over the coming month to dive deep into the many discussions that are already emerging in the chat. Loving this parallel conversation that is happening right now. But in this first workshop, I just want us to have an opportunity to socialize for a bit before we get into the weeds. So we're just going to go into breakout rooms to say hi for a moment, and we'll have two different sessions. The first prompt that I'm offering you for you to discuss is just to talk about what drew you to this space, what appealed to you in the space of proof of personhood, how did you get into it, how did you learn about it, and then during our second breakout room sessions, we're just going to talk about some of the challenges that we see for the space moving forward. So Vinay is going to be putting you all in rooms. Wait, where's Vinay? Oh, here, right now. And we'll see you in 15 minutes.
All right, I'll just allocate everyone just to clarify that there's two different breakouts. There'll be 15 minutes with one set of people and then a following session with another group of people. But for now, I'm just gonna allocate everyone and enjoy your time together.
All right. Did our group get smaller, or no, not everyone is back yet? Let's wait for a moment. Cool. All right. So we want to shuffle you all a bit more so you get to meet other people as well. We're going to just go into breakout rooms once again. The new prompt is just to talk about what are some of the main challenges that you see in the space. And then this is going to be a shorter session because I want to do a very quick exercise with you on Polis, which is a tool that we'll be using moving forward. So Vinay, should we just do a very quick 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right, so there we go. And I'll see you back here soon.
Oh, that was fast.
Yes. Sorry about that, everyone. I wish we had more time together, but I really want to try to keep us on schedule as much as possible. This was just an opportunity for you to say hi to each other, because we're just going to be diving into discussions more intensely over the next few workshops, and I wanted to just create a space for that today. And now we're going to start preparing for our next workshop. I'm going to be sharing a link with you over the chat. And then the theme of the next workshop is just to envision how proof of personhood solutions could become ubiquitous in the future, what this future would look like, and what are some of the economic and political possibilities that they could enable. And so we created this poll in order for you to just share, how do you see POP networks interacting with existing institutions? And I'll talk about police in more depth over our next workshop. But today, all I want is for you to just join this link that I'll share here. And just go over there for the next few minutes and add a couple statements in response to this question. Each statement can only contain one idea, so these are short statements, and I want you to try to add at least 3 of them. It's okay, you'll have time to add more later, but I just want you to take a moment to do that, just so we're prepared for our next meeting. So if anyone has any questions, or if the link is not working, or does everyone has it all right?
Yeah, it's working.
All right. Okay, if you were not able to do 3 statements, that's fine. You can do them later. I just wanted you to ensure that you added a few by creating the space here. But now I'll ask you to come back to the room. And yes, we're going to have a homework for the next session. If you look into the link, you probably notice that some of these statements are appearing for you, and you can like them, dislike them, or pass them. So over the coming week, your homework is just to add your statements on Polis, and then like, dislike, or pass the statements of everybody else. And then this tool is going to generate a really interesting report showing what are the differing spheres of opinion within this group. And we'll read this report in order to kickstart our discussions in our next workshop. So this is the homework. Now I'll just talk about a few logistical things before we go. The first is that we decided to add an additional workshop to our program. This was really a missing component that I felt we had. The workshop is going to be centered on envisioning what a radically more human-centered internet could look like. So in our next workshop, we'll also be envisioning the future, but more the conversation will be more centered on governance questions and economic questions. And in this additional session, we'll be talking about technology, how technology can be a lot more human-centered. And we'll have Divya Siddharth and Albert Wenger. They're going to be giving us some interesting provocations that I think can be tremendously powerful for proof of personhood networks, if not really become the driving force behind some of these systems. So you got a change in the schedule for workshop number 4. It was on a Monday. Now it's happening the next day. So it's on a Tuesday. I hope that everyone can make it. It's going to be really exciting. And with that, our final workshop has moved to August 30. And that's when we're going to have Christopher Allen talking to us about rebooting the web of trust, giving us a perspective of how we can organize moving forward. So these are the 2 changes. Everyone should have gotten their invites. If you didn't, just ping me. And finally, David and Sophia, who are here with us, have very generously agreed to write a report on these conversations that we're going to be having moving forward. So tomorrow I'll be sending you a summary. I'll be adding that to Notion and sending you a summary of some of the key ideas that we already discussed today. And everyone is welcome to join this document as a collaborator and just add your own inputs over there. And this way we'll just have this kind of final product of our conversations that we can refer to moving forward. All right, this is it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, for joining us. It's going to be hopefully a really fun journey ahead. And today we just had a lighter session to kickstart things, but I'm excited to be gathering with you all over the next few weeks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for organizing, Paula.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, bye.
Thank you, Paula.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Congrats.
Thank you. Congratulations to you too.